Welcome to another edition of Bases and Balls with Guardians broadcaster Jim Rosenhaus. Takes time to join us each and every week here on WAKR and WAKR.net. Brought to you by the Old 97 Cafe. And Rosie, let's start off and talk offense. You're seeing every pitch. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that it's struggled a little bit. Are the guys pressing? Have the opposition made adjustments? Is it all of the above? Your perspective on the offense so far?
Yeah, probably all of the above. And it's been a real struggle, Ray. I mean, they're at the bottom of the American League in terms of runs scored, and then all the periphery numbers lead into that. So you can understand why they're not scoring runs because, the important stuff, it's just not happening so far. So, you know what? I think there is some frustration for sure, especially for players who, have track records of doing much better than they're doing right now. And you just look up and down that lineup. Really, I mean, you could probably point to Stephen Kwan and Jose Ramirez as players who are remotely close to where you would expect them to be based on a season ago. And obviously Jose has a much longer track record. So, they've been good, but, you look at Ahmed Rosario struggling. Andres Jimenez really struggling. Miles Straw is back in a tough stretch. Mike Zunino's had a tough time. So when you put that many players in there that are struggling, it's hard to get that line moving. And because the Guardians don't hit for much power, they have to get the line moving, and they just haven't been able to do it yet.
And it's why they play the game right. Best laid scenario in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
You signed Bell. He's your 4 guy. Naylor's your 5 guy coming off a terrific season. And then Gonzalez in the 6 hole, and you felt really good in the offseason about that 4, 5, 6. And right now you got Bell struggling. Naylor's below 200, and Gonzalez is back in AAA.
Yeah, and it's hard. And you mentioned like that spot's in the order where you were hoping for some power increase, because that was, you looked at last year and they were about middle of the pack offensively, maybe even a little bit higher than that, just based on how they went about it. And you thought, well, if they could add a little bit of power, this thing could really take off. And that hasn't happened. And now it's gone, completely the other way, where they're looking up at the rest of the league in terms of offense, and it's really hurt them. It's funny, you think about it, what their record is and where they are in the standings. It probably could have been a lot worse than what it's been. I mean, they've won some close games, they've gotten some good pitching, and that's helped them stay close to the 500 mark and close to the top of the division. But at some point the offense has to get going. They know that, they're working at it. And I think Tito and the coaching staff, they're trying to balance patience with maybe moving some things around. They want to just dive into the work right now and be patient and hope the work pays off. But at some point, I'm sure you'll see some tinkering of maybe lineup or personnel. We'll see. But at least for right now, they want to stay with what they have.
On the positive side, you've got Kansas City really struggling in the division. The White Sox have really gotten off to a slow start. Detroit's better. Minnesota and the Guardians right there together. So you look at last year, it was a little bit of a stumble at the beginning, and then the summer heated up and we rolled. We're also doing it with 2 of our starting pitchers that are originally slated in our starting 5. So I'm glass half full type of guy, Rosie. I'm thinking, hey, we get healthy, we straighten these things out. This division easily still can be ours.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. We haven't seen the division very much early in the season, Ray, with the new schedule. But when different teams come in, and obviously we just finished playing a road trip against Boston and New York, and they kind of, when you visit with some of their people, they're like, oh man, we wish we were in your division, because then we'd be a lot better off. But they're all looking up at Tampa Bay and the Blue Jays, and then the Yankees and Red Sox are actually playing pretty good, and they're all over 500. The Orioles are one of the big surprises in a good way. And but you play who you play, and you're in your division, and you go with what you have, and because of that, they're hanging around, and you feel like it might not take much to play some winning baseball and stay close, because they've struggled so mightily offensively. You feel like that can turn a little bit and they'll be just fine.
Well, let's talk about some of the young pitchers. And Battenfield pitched on Wednesday. Bybee has pitched and he's been pretty solid. Had a rough outing the other day, and then Logan Allen to me has been pretty consistent. Talk about these three youngsters for us.
Well, you know what? They've all come up, and I think what's been impressive is, aside from Bobby's last start, he struggled with his command, but they've all gone right after the hitters. I think they've said, all right, here's my stuff. I'm going to throw strikes. I'm not going to get beat because I'm walking people. I'm going to see if my stuff plays up here. And it does. Battenfield got nicked a little bit on Wednesday. He has to be really fine with his location, and he was up a little bit with some of his pitches. But I think all three have really attacked the strike zone, attacked hitters, and found out that their stuff is good enough to play up here. And that's really encouraging. And I mean, Bybee's stuff is second to none. Allen's might be better than people give him credit for. And this, Battenfield has to be fine with his stuff, but that's how he's always been. So he can be that way. And I think we've seen some really good stuff from him.
Speaking of pitching, how about an update? Where are we with Tristan McKenzie and Aaron Savali? What do you know?
Well, both are out in Goodyear, Arizona, and they're kind of on similar paths in terms of they've been on the mound in the bullpen. They've faced some hitters now, and the next step is some games out there, kind of simulated games, before they send them out on a full rehab. McKenzie cannot come back just because he's on the 60-day injured list until the 1st of June at the earliest, technically late May, but look for him at the earliest early June, and probably the same with Savali, just based on where he is. But there's been no setbacks. They're they're progressing nicely. They're starting to face hitters, so that's a good thing. I feel like once they get to that stage, then it starts to go pretty quick, where you'll see them out on rehab assignments with either Akron or Columbus, depending on who's closer.
I was wondering, speaking of path, since we talked last, Zach Plesac was sent down to Columbus to try to straighten some things out. What have you heard since he's gone back down to Columbus to regroup?
Pitched very well in his first outing for the Clippers. 6 strong innings, threw strikes, by all accounts, trusted his stuff. I think the biggest issue here, from talking to Carl Willis and hearing Tito talk about it too, he'd do fine in his between starts bullpens and warming up before a game, but then he'd get in the game and try and reach back maybe for a little more velocity, or just try and be too fine instead of just trusting his stuff. And it's funny, Ray, certain pitchers, sometimes they might be better at 91, 92 with command and movement, but if they reach back and try and get 94, 95, it flattens out and they leave pitches up, and then, they're giving up runs. And so that may be, it's probably too simple, but I think that's part of what's going on with Zach. So I think they're just trying to get him to that point where, hey, go into a game and do what you've been doing on the side and you'll be just fine. And I think he did that his first time out in Columbus, and that's a positive. How long he's there, who knows? But at least he's off to a good start and seems to be embracing the work down there.
That's good to hear. Okay, wrapping up a long homestand this weekend, we got the Angels coming in, and they bring 2 star power guys into their lineup. Talk a little bit of a preview, Rosie, if you can. Guardians Angels this weekend.
Biggest stars in the game, Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout. And they're playing a little better. Their pitching's been a little bit better, and it's almost like they're all in. They've got to get to the playoffs while they have Ohtani. I mean, this is his walk here for free agency, and they haven't been to the postseason with him yet. And Trout's been there too the whole time. So they've made some nice additions, and they're playing a little bit better. They're right near the top in the AL West, and you just get the feeling there's some real urgency there to get to the postseason. And I think baseball, honestly, I mean, they're not supposed to root for certain teams, but I think they'd love to see those 2 guys in the postseason and on that big stage, because they are, Ohtani transcends anything that's going on in baseball, what he's doing on the mound and at the plate. And Mike Trout's been one of the great players for a long time now. I mean, he's a kind of a savvy veteran now, instead of that young kid coming up and and making a name for himself. So they're a fun team to watch. It'll be a challenge this weekend for sure with the Angels in town.
7:10 tonight, 6:10 Saturday night, 11:40 on Sunday morning. Yeah, Rosie, you're going to have to shake out of the hay real early and get that run in early on Sunday morning.
I think so, right? That's the early game, but you know what? The way it's been going game time wise, that means get home nice and early for Mother's Day too, to spend that at home, which will be nice.
Well said. Jim Rosenhaus from the broadcast booth at Bases and Balls. He joins us each week here on WAKR, brought to you by the Old 97 Cafe. Rosie, as always, my friend, thanks for taking the time with us here on WAKR.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.